What's going on, everybody? Teddy Baldassarre from teddybaldassarre.com. If you're new to this channel, this is where I cover additional pieces that are available on my website, teddybaldassarre.com, as an authorized dealer. Today, we're going to be looking at a very cool watch with the Oris Big Crown Pointer Date. So we're going to be taking a closer look at this watch in full detail, and at the end, kind of some closing thoughts and things to consider. And if you are interested in purchasing this watch, link in the description with more details on the product page, and feel free to reach out to us through direct chat or through booking a call with me directly. But guys, let's take a closer look at this watch. Now, first looking at a rundown of the specs, we have a case size of 40 millimeters, thickness of 11.8 millimeters, lug width of 20 millimeters, lug to lug of 48 millimeters, water resistance of 50 meters, movement is an automatic SW200, crystal is sapphire, and price $1,750. Now, when looking at Swiss-made watches, unfortunately, I think we see big premiums with certain watches as you start to kind of go up market. But one of the best representations of living wonderfully at the crossroads of delivering, I'd say, a luxury product in a lot of ways without the over-reliance on status is Oris. Now, the brand was started back in 1904 and I think is one of the last brands of its size to really be independent in its ownership, not falling underneath any group structure. The model that we have here today is not only one of my favorite watches from Oris, if not my favorite, with their Oris Big Crown Pointer Date, but it's also a version here that we're looking at today I think is just really attractive with this reddish burgundy dial. So with the Big Crown Pointer Date family, in the last few years, we've really seen it become kind of a big hit. We saw different models, multiple sizes, case materials with the popular bronze releases, and with several different dial colors. The model family was first introduced back in 1938, and as the name suggests, was a model intended for pilots, featuring nice legibility and a large crown relative to the case size to really assist with that engagement of the crown. This original function, and more importantly, the design style this watch had, really became an ideal fit for the world of vintage-inspired pieces that have just kind of flooded the market as of late. But with the backstory of this piece, as well as the awesome looks, I think it makes total sense why this one has become very popular and is a great everyday wear option. First, looking at this piece on the wrist, we have a case size of 40 millimeters, a thickness just under 12 millimeters with a few millimeters coming from that dome sapphire crystal present, and a lug to lug of 48 millimeters. Now, I've spent time wearing both a 36 millimeter option of the Big Crown Pointer Date and these 40 millimeter options as well. And I think personally now, I do kind of prefer the 40 millimeter just a bit more because I've just kind of fallen in love with a little bit larger case sizes now as of late. This considered, though, the 40 millimeter here wears pretty true to that in terms of the lug to lug and also the diameter, but one factor to consider here in terms of its overall appearance when having it on the wrist is this coin edge bezel. This is going to make the dial actually appear a tad larger when strapped onto the wrist. So if you are on the fence and thinking that this might be a little bit too large, go for the 36 millimeter option. If you are on the larger end here of wrist sizes, I think the 40 millimeter option will be very wearable and really is going to come down to personal preference. I'm at 6.25 inches, so around just under 16 centimeters, and I think I am just right at the cusp of being able to work both of these. So if you're a little bit larger than that, maybe start leaning to the 40 millimeter. If you're around that size and under, I would probably look at the 36 millimeter option of the Oris Big Crown Pointer Date family. The watch in the area of thickness, though, works very well with that dome sapphire crystal and really tastefully distorts at certain angles, kind of channeling a bit of that vintage charm of older crystals, and is still thin enough to slide underneath traditional dress cuffs. Between the lugs here, we have a lug width of 20 millimeters, which is great for getting a lot of versatility in terms of straps. The strap that this one comes with is a distressed genuine leather strap with kind of a heavy taper down to 16 millimeters at the buckle, so just bring up that point just if you wanted to switch out the buckle on a different strap, but probably not the biggest point here because the buckle is pretty standard, just simply signed, and probably is not going to provide the same type of upside as you did if you had like a bronze case, for example, and you wanted a match. The case here comes in a brushed anterior side and then is polished along the side of the case. At the 3 o'clock, we have a screw-down crown that offers a little extra security with that 50 meters of water resistance. The crown, given its larger size relative to the case, makes it much easier to engage, featuring hand winding at the first position when unscrewed, adjusting the time at that farthest out position, and then at that second position, you can of course adjust the pointer date. So I know I went a bit out of chronological order there when naming the features of the crown action, but the adjustment of the date here on this piece is not just a conventional feature, but is also probably one of the more appealing aspects of this piece overall, and hence why it's called what it's called. So as the name suggests, here we have a pointer date, and this is kind of a retro complication. It's not one that you see executed much nowadays, but is a very fun way to tell the date. Looking at the dial, we have 4 hands. So the hour and minute hand following a cathedral style handset containing loom, a straightforward steel second hand, and then finally a long date hand stacked closest to the dial, featuring a red varnish indicator at the end. This action, when engaging the crown, acts similar to, say, a common date aperture, except instead of the revolving date wheel set underneath the dial, here we have the snapping ahead of the pointer date that will align with the corresponding day of the month numeral set along the outside. Honestly, I think this is a very cool feature, and typically you're going to see this as a feature in more higher end, classically designed dress pieces, I think from brands like a JLC, for example, but no question that it works in this instance, and I think is a great differentiator for this line compared to other watches on the market. Looking closer at the dial, we have what I would classify as, say, like a burgundy or an oxblood in terms of its color. It's more of a deeper red that I think works really well as a color in the fall or winter. I don't necessarily see watches as being seasonal, but when looking at this piece, it just comes to my mind where I could just see this looking fantastic with a jacket and a sweater on a colder day. I just imagine that kind of popping into my head when looking at this dial shade. Within the outer track where the date is going to be indicated, we also have a railway minute track containing triangular loom markings at each of the hours, with a corresponding large numeral residing next to the rest of the markers. The loom on this piece is adequate, with the hands shining the brightest, those cathedral hands, which I think really look cool when they're actually lit up in the dark, and does its job in assisting with viewing the time in the dark. Flipping over the big crown, we have an open case back providing view of one of the most popular Swiss automatic calibers on the market with the SW200. Now, Oris recently, at the time of making this video, announced a new in-house caliber that I'm sure we're going to be seeing rolled out in many of their watches. But in the meantime, we're getting one of the most reliable and serviceable calibers on the market here with this Sellita. The movement is a solid alternative to the ETA 2824, and from a brand perspective makes a lot of sense given the unexpected production levels in games commonly associated with ETA the past several years. So it makes a lot of sense why Oris is continuing to go in this direction. The movement is utilitarian in its overall finish, features a custom red rotor that kind of has become a hallmark of the brand, and then operates with pretty good accuracy out of the box in terms of what Oris is delivering from a regulation standpoint. Tested this at multiple positions, looking at 4 seconds a day here in terms of accuracy at those positions on average. This is going to be operating at 28,800 vibrations per hour, 4 hertz for this movement. Features hacking, so when you pull out that crown to the farthest position, it's going to stop that second hand when you set the time as well. And then hand winding as well as a feature of this movement, and then also has a power reserve of 38 hours. Alright, so now just a few things to unpack and why I think this is a fantastic watch, and just some things to also consider though as well before maybe buying. So first, 40 millimeters might appear a bit larger just given those kind of aspects that I mentioned about the smaller bezel, larger dial, just something to consider there. Also, I could see another point where somebody might be making, because this is such a great everyday wearer, 50 meters of water resistance might be a little bit lower than, say, the 100 meters of water resistance that somebody might want to see here, but you are also getting a screw down crown, so that might give a little bit more assistance there. But I think those are the two negatives that I could see with this piece. But on the positive end, I think, again, this is kind of interjecting a little more of personal opinion. This is probably my favorite line that Oris makes. It's a great everyday wear. This has always been kind of on my short list of great everyday watches under $2,000. You're getting a beautiful and unique dial design, the cathedral hands, the pointer date. All of that comes together to create a design formula that I think is very its own, especially in this price bracket. The pointer date overall is an actual complication you do not see very often. Like mentioned, typically are seeing this in kind of high class, high elevated, kind of dress complicated watches at higher price ranges. It's not necessarily the hardest complication to pull off in comparison to others, but it's still very cool. In addition, you're also getting a reliable and serviceable movement, so a lot of places to go to get this done, and it's going to be way more affordable than going in-house. And then finally, again, it's just a great everyday wearer. This particular dial variant I think is a little bit more fun compared to, say, like the conventional blue that I see very often. I actually reviewed on my main channel about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. But the great thing about this line, and I think Oris in general, is they give you a lot of different options to choose from. And I think overall, the Oris Big Crown Pointer Date is a fantastic watch under $2,000. All right, guys, thank you again so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Also, if you want more details about this watch, link in the description. Baldassarre.com, full authorized dealer of all the brands that we carry. Also coming with a factory warranty as well. So guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.